Hi, it's Thursday, May 23rd, 2019. I'm Michael James Ott, and this is the Pro and the Con Show. Again, I'm your host. Welcome to the show. It's Thursday, the 23rd of May here in Hudson, Wisconsin. I'm coming to you from my small little office here in my home. Welcome to the show. Normally, we would try to delve into some of the news. And I would normally do that, but there's this ongoing altercation, war of words between Mr. Trump in the White House and the Democrats in the House of Representatives. And yeah, so today's the day where they're escalating the rhetoric back and forth. And it's the kind of thing that causes most Americans, I believe, to cringe. We really would prefer that this sort of thing was not going on. And the real difficult problem for us is, much like when an official or an elected official or an appointed official enters an office where they have influence, and they don't separate themselves, they don't put their finances into a blind trust or something, then there's always this question: or are they acting in the interests of the average American, or are they acting in the interests of their own interests to try to grow their wealth? And there's other examples. Maybe it's not money. Maybe it's they're trying to get certain zones redistricted so that they can at some future time build a warehouse or something in a place that they feel is ideal, or whatever. All these kinds of things. So yeah, I'm not going to jump into the left, the middle, and the right kind of thing here, because at the moment the headlines are all about the Democrats led by Nancy Pelosi and the Republicans led by Donald Trump, basically just standing on each side of the street and screaming at each other. And congratulations. I'm pretty darn sure that, okay, it's a guess on my part, but I'm thinking that 200 of the 200 whatever millions of adults that care about this kind of thing, 90% of them are like, well, really, this is what we've got. And it is what we've got, and it's my fault, and it's your fault, and it's all of us that have allowed ourselves to carry on in this two-party system. By the way, if you were to ask a lot of Americans, hey, is the two-party political system in the Constitution? I would guess a lot of them would say yes, but it's clear, it's not mentioned in any way, shape, or form, and it's really it's wreaking havoc with our ability to govern ourselves. And, this thing, I've talked about it before, I'll talk about it again, this elect and forget kind of thing is a big problem. But just the fact that the rhetoric is so institutionalized, Republican versus Democrat, just two parties, and there's so much money and so much poison in this, and these groups are so polarized, and there's actually so few of them. The puppeteers, I call them, the rich and wealthy on both sides. The so-called the liberals or Democrats, and so-called conservatives or Republicans, and it's they're just looking to do what they want to do for their own interests, and they're letting us, strings attached here. I might as well tie some strings and have some strings hanging on me here. You should too. We're letting this happen. So rather than talk about the ongoing verbal war over Trump's records and so on, which is going to be a continuous thing, has been, will be, I want to talk again, bring up how do we resolve this. So rather than sit around and complain, it's very easy for us. We can sit around a cup of coffee at morning cafe or something and complain. But the better way is, okay, we've identified a problem. What's the solution? And the solution is we try to figure out a methodology where we can get all of the money and the power out of politics. And what does that mean? Well, we are at a place with communication and education and capability, technical capability, that we can easily rid ourselves of the two-party tradition, and that's all it is a tradition. We've had this two-party tradition where these party bosses, and they even call them party bosses, and mob bosses, okay, they're party bosses, and they wield power, and they decide who gets selected, and they have tremendous influence, certainly on local elections and who gets selected and so on. And because the people that are getting elected, want to be elected, there's this string, there's attachments, and so you get this coercion of power because of the influence of these political parties and the political bosses. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to need to pass an amendment to the Constitution. And now the current representatives that we have in Washington almost certainly are not going to be willing to do this. I think some number of them will. I mean, I think for sure some percentage, I don't know what, I couldn't even begin to guess what percentage of our current representatives would look at a election system that would rid us of the influence of the political parties and money and power, and turn that all over to citizen representatives, citizen statesmen that would be selected. If you think about it, the easy way to think about it is kind of a mix of jury duty, right? So we get called up for jury duty, and we are compelled to go present ourselves for jury duty, randomly selected, right? Compelled to go present ourselves, and then the court system, the judge and the attorneys or whatever, look at the jury and then say, okay, yes, this jury is appropriate. You're going to sit, and the rest of you go home, right? And just think of it, okay, so there's the first part is they're just called up, they're randomly selected. People of a certain age in certain areas are selected randomly. Then they are evaluated by, in the case of the courts, it's the judge and the attorneys. In the case of an election system, it'd be by you and I. We would have like an initial read on these people based on information that they put into a secure, centralized database that we could go in and look at. And then the third and final step is elections, or part of this is elections. And so that's typically what we've been doing already. So you have the candidates that kind of make it through the initial screenings end up going into an election system very similar to the one that we currently have, except for we're not going to let them advertise on television. The place to carry on their dialogue with all of us is on one of these secure systems. And so if I am interested in candidates, and I am, and you should be too, I would beg you actually to be very interested in the candidates that might affect you, so president or your representatives or the senators or whatever. from wherever you live, you should be very much interested in what's going on with them. And the way to truly find out about them is not some massaged message in videos and stuff that they've paid some consultant millions of dollars to say so that they wouldn't offend you. You see these videos and things that are produced by them and just by the candidates, and they're just talking about there's this standardized format. Here's the information, and so here's my biography. Here's what I've done. Here's this thing can be fact checked by other people that are registered, known entities. And they can question some of the facts or point out where there's discrepancies in the stories if there are any, that kind of stuff. But anyway, the whole point is, here's the place. So now if I want to find out about the candidates for representative, I can go the night before the election and I can look through things for a couple of hours and say, oh, okay, candidate A, candidate B, candidate C. Oh, candidate B looks pretty good. I like their position on these things. I watched videos of them speaking in public. I think they have excellent communication skills. It looks like they're embracing this idea of, the citizen representative. So I think I'm going to select candidate B. And then you would vote on that system. All very secure and ensured to be so. Every election cycle, the House of Representatives would have the government agencies validate that the security of the system is appropriate and that the standardized formats and everything are set so that there's an equal footing for all of these candidates. And I would suggest that we do it on a federal level first, and then if it's working well, and I think it would work great, then we would, in theory, try to implement the same sort of thing on state level and local level governments, and just get all the political party influence out of the election system. And I guarantee you right now, if the officials, the President of the United States and all the representatives in the House and all the senators in the Senate, if they were non-political people, apolitical people, that did not owe special interest groups, industry groups, political party hacks, party bosses, international oligarchs, all this stuff. If they had no affiliation and no ownership, or not ownership, but no obligations, no debts to all of these people, they would just be, okay, what's going on? And, I took an oath to try to support the people. I'm here for, a few years, 3 years, 4 years, 6 years. I'm here. I'm not going to get reelected. That's it, and some guy, on the fourth year of my term, someone's going to replace me. So I'm going to write out, here's the last months of what I've been doing and why, and present that to him on the day that he takes over the office, and then I'm out of here. I'm done for, I've served my my service, just like a jury duty, right? You actually stand jury duty, you go through the trial, you perform your duty to the court, and then when you're done, and you go home. And you did the best you can. You were a juror, and you tried to take it seriously. Of course, you did take it seriously. You did the best you could in analyzing the facts and coming up with what you thought was the right verdict. And then that's it. You're done. And you go home. So, so one of the advantages of having this kind of repetitive news cycle on this thing between the Congress and Mr. Trump in the White House is that it does afford opportunities to stand back and look at things more holistically and say, why don't we change things on a grander scale? And I hope that these kinds of thoughts and others, as I talk to you in these programs, I hope they cause you to think, to try to evaluate things in a little bit different way, to approach these issues with what I say is a more open heart and mind, and then fully informed going forward, the pro and the con, the good and the bad, the for and against, will make better policy and better decisions. And one of the best decisions we could make is to change and reform the election system in a massive way. And like I say, I don't think most of the representatives would go for that, so we'd end up having to have a kind of a massive public display of support. So I guarantee you, if we had millions of people in the street peacefully in the streets, calling for one of these amendments that I'm proposing, or something like it, not perfect, it's just a strongman proposal, then they would be forced, our government representatives would be forced to enact what would be the will of the people. All right, so for the 23rd of May, this is Michael James Ott. Hope the show was a good one for you, and I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow. Bye for now.